a bit intimidating. Having heard all that, I feel a bit tired. It's a very, very great pleasure and immense surprise for me to be here today and look out across this room, which I knew during my time here very well. The 1969 was the year that the moon landings took place, and we watched it here on a television set that we carried across the oval from the prep school, a 30-inch TV, and set it up in the middle of the stage here and watched the moon landing. It would have been easier to have seen the moon with binoculars outside, but the experience was really quite extraordinary and deeply improbable, as is my presence here today under these circumstances. The Prince Alfred College in 1969 was a wonderful place that I was very, very pleased to come to. It had been a long journey to get here. I came from a farming background, fifth generation farming background, and I was headed in that path, but I tried to get here in '67, but there was a very severe drought and there was no money and it couldn't happen. So I came in '69 and I had the most marvellous year probably of my life. It was a very exciting year. A lot happened. Prince's was a lot tougher place in those days, by the way. The life in the boarding house was robust. I think the word Spartan is pretty much it. It was quite a different environment, quite a different place. I was in a class called 6 Upper G, which an earlier member of us in it over here, and it was something of a sort of French Foreign Legion, or sort of, it was where they put all the boys they didn't know what to do with. And I've maintained friendships with some of those men over my whole life. Our master was David Mattingly, who I'm sure, David Mattingly DFC, who I'm sure even today you would have heard of. He was a very, very fine man. He was a great teacher, passionate teacher, and he revived Prince's Rowing Club, which had fallen into disrepair. And we used to run after school from here down to the rowing shed, row up and down the river, run back at 6. And it was a fairly robust life. The art world was one I was very passionate about becoming part of. We had Mr. Malcolm Gray as the master here at the time, and you sort of stopped in leaving. You know, it wasn't something you could take seriously as a profession. Something you did, and if you had a bent and showed a bit of ability, and it rounded you off and that sort of thing. Matriculation art was offered here for the first time in '69, and 3 of us sat. Well, we were meant to. One, unfortunately, due to illness, couldn't. Another, Tom, I've lost track of. He went back to America. And never mind, I then went to the South Australian School of Art, and South Australia in 1970 was a pretty interesting place in an art sense. There was a huge and sudden growth in arts and arts activity in all kinds of areas. I'd gone to art school intending to become a painter, and having discovered that I sort of got very weary of cows, and I sort of thought life on a tractor, no, art school would be for me. By the time I graduated from the School of Art, I had become involved with ceramics in the ceramics workshop, pottery workshop they had there, and I started down a path of being a potter. Now, in those days, the crafts world was growing in our community, more or less non-existent in the 60s, but in the 70s and 80s, across all the craft mediums, metal, timber, glass, ceramics, leather, all fabrics, textiles, all sorts of things. It was a huge growing world, and I became part of that. I set out to be a professional, a full-time practitioner in the field, not just a hobbyist, and I have followed that path ever since. I have, along the way, become very involved with the arts organisations and their management. I feel, and you might want to reflect on this, that whatever profession that you pursue as a Prince's man, there is a sort of bit of an obligation that you will give back to the society that you belong to, and that you'll contribute to your profession, generally through professional organisations and groups. It's a thing that, that goes with you in any profession, to see it well and see it managed well. And I've done just that by being involved with a whole raft of arts organisations across many years, state and federally, government organisations, etc. Quite by accident, I found my way into the political world through an area, first in local government. I was a deputy mayor, and then a thing called regional development, and became part of the regional development network in South Australia, and actually ended up as the president of Regional Development South Australia. An extremely unlikely outcome for an artist of any sort, particularly a ceramic artist. And I'd often get the question, what do you do? And it was always a bit tricky to try and explain that in fact I was an artist. No, and not a lawyer, no, not a bureaucrat, no, I'm an artist. However, I'd say I had, and those of you with a great interest in art might want to reflect upon this, that what the process of art does for you is teach you to use your imagination effectively, to direct it, to get it to create form, to use it to discover things. That is, that's something that art, that's natural to the art world, but take it over into the business world and you've got a bit of an interesting proposition. You've got a way of thinking through problems in a different way, in a more creative way. Well, what about, that's about me, what about you and your future? The art world in this country is immensely important to it. Art, let's get to the basis of art. Art is humanity's really big idea. It's the idea that separates us from so many of the follies of human nature. It's a pathway into enlightenment and understanding of each other. In my own work as an artist, I have accessed the art of other cultures. Eventually, a culture is summed up by its art. The archaeologist somewhere down the road digs something up, and what you dig up is the art. They'll be having fun when they dig ours up. You can understand other cultures and societies, other people, so much better if you can access the world of Japan, of Southeast Asia. I'm going to have to say China at some stage. You can access the cultures of the world through their art. In my case, very strongly, Asian art, Japanese art in particular. This work of mine you've just seen here belongs to an aesthetic idea that the Japanese developed 400 years ago, and it's called wabi. And it's about an expression of the nature of things, the naturalness of things. It's a complicated idea, and I could go on for quite some time, which I promise I won't. However, that's what art offers you, a pathway into understanding the world, your friends, yourself, your experiences in life, a pathway for reflecting upon all the complex nature of the world around you. It requires discipline. You need to be well trained, and you need to be well educated. You need to go to a good art school and get a good education. And you need to work really quite hard. In the case of ceramics, it's a physical activity. Probably appealed to me coming off a farm, you know, the bit of agriculture and the whole thing. So you have to have a head for some chemistry, some physics. You've got to build kilns and make things and invent glazes and all these things that are all involved in. It's a very, very physical activity. So, you know, it's demanding. Art is not, people think it is indulgence where you just drift along and enjoy yourself. Heavens no, it isn't. If you want to succeed at it, it is really pretty tough work, and it is pretty emotionally demanding as well. However, they've just done a survey, the Australia Council has done a survey, and they figured out 98% of Australians have a regular contact with art in some way. Well, they mean the arts in a very broad sense. I hope none of the 2% that aren't are sitting here today. We all have a contact with it. We can do it at various levels. Even if you don't pursue a career in art, your interest in it is important. It's important not to you, but it's important to your society, because art tells you about all sorts of things in society. You can go to the opera, visit art galleries, become part of the things that happen in art, in the music world, in the theatre world, in the visual arts world. And that, by that means, art and culture in our society thrives. It's your job to leave this place, go out there and get on with it and make the art world important in this country, because it's important to this country. Well, I won't detain you any longer. It's a very strange experience to sit here, to stand here and look out. In my day, we all wore grey suits, and blazers only for special occasions. If you got in the choir, you got a blazer and a boater, and even if you couldn't sing, you were desperate to get in. 1969 was the last year of school caps. It might sound rather bizarre now, but we all wore them, and if we wore them out, we left the grounds, you wore the school cap. End of story. We had special ways of wearing it. One sort of, the rowers did this and the cricketers did that, and with little messages and the way we wore the hat. But they announced it was going to be, one day they announced it was going to be voluntary in the future. No cap was ever seen at Prince Alfred College again. It ended. However, I had a magnificent experience in this school. I hope you're enjoying the same. Maybe you've just failed a test and you're on detention tonight and you're not feeling too happy about it. But on the whole, it will give you something that you'll carry all your days. It has me. It was an experience that changed me and advantaged me. And I think and hope it will be the same for you. Thank you.